Plateau State House of Assembly complex, where today, Thursday morning, the Speaker, Nuhu Abok Ayuba, was impeached by 16 members out of the 24 members. There has been intrigue towards this occurrence today, and last night rumors was rife that he was going to be impeached this morning. So many wranglings, so many misunderstandings between him and the executive, as well as his party member, the All Progressive Congress, and the height of the crisis was owing to the last violence that happened in the state, where lives were lost, and he started doing his things differently from that of his party and from that of the executive. However, there are so many intrigues, there are so many questions to be asked, there are so many explanations to be made, but what as it stands now, he has been impeached, and the town has kind of been scanty. People are not certain what the situation is going to be like, and however, the road leading to the assembly complex has been blocked, and there are security agencies stationed elsewhere to forestall any outbreak of violence.
Well, there you have it. Update from Dixon Adama there in Jos Plateau State, giving us an insight on what transpired, at the Plateau State Assembly. This is quite interesting. We are seeing, this is not the first of its kind. We've seen such, happenings, in several other states, where the State Assembly, you'd find that there's this groupings, some group of people who just go and, come together and impeach, a speaker. Yes, we know that it is constitutionally provided for, but in your opinion, do you think that this has been abused in some way?
Yeah, of course, because as we said, this is not the first time it's happening. And even in Plateau State, the current governor of Plateau State, Barrister Salman Lalong, was also, impeached at one time when he was a speaker of the State Assembly. And so it's like a kind of history repeating itself, though the circumstances might be different. But it's the same thing. And, when the framers of the Constitution made provisions for impeachment of officers for one reason or other, they gave stringent conditions. It's not a frivolous exercise. It's an exercise that would have to be guided by law, guided by procedures. It's not just about, whims and caprices or, of politicians or political actors. It's about several, procedures and processes that have to be followed. And even at that, it has to be at the last resort, because we don't want a situation where there'll be, instability of public officers and public officers. Of course, when you have, evidence, concrete evidence about, infractions by public officials, which are also guided by the constitutional procedures, then you can proceed. But the way we see impeachment being done in this country, just about the whims and caprices of people, and especially when political seasons are about to begin. In this case, the 2023 political season is about to begin, or is beginning, and then people begin to look at how they can reposition themselves to be able to get things done. There are rumors, though not confirmed, that it's all part of the calculations in Plateau State for the coming political season, the 2023, and that the two political parties in Plateau State, they're strong now. PDP and APC are jostling to try and see how they can upstage the other, and the governor who is APC wants to ensure that his party remains in power, while the PDP is making quite a big surge to be able to upstage him in power. So, we are likely to see a lot of these things going on. And I understand too that even the speaker, the impeached speaker, has also gone out to try to see how he can rally his own troops to make sure that this does not happen. So it's still an ongoing story. But the major thing to know is that we should be very, very circumspect in doing some of these things, because it hits up the polity, and at the end of the day, it's it runs the risk of making a spiral of political actions like this that would make everything about politics to be constantly not for the people, but for individuals, and that's not what we want to see.
Okay, now 16 people out of 24 voted him out. Some would say, is that number adequate enough to actually vote out an individual?
No, if you look at 16 out of 24, that's almost like 2/3.
Yeah, so. But even though that claim has been, that's what we got from the reports we get. But the person in question is saying that it's not up to that number. He said about 6 or 8 people, that came together to do that.
That's what I said. That's what I said, because some of these claims really are subject to question, because we have to know the count. We have to be able to establish the count of people who actually organized, moved the impeachment and carried it out. And if it's not in accordance with what is required constitutionally, then it is not proper. It's not properly done. And of course, the impeached speaker now has claimed that. So we need to be able to get the veracity of the situation of it happening in Plateau State House of Assembly, to be able to know whether the speaker was properly impeached and whether they had the required, not just the numbers, but in terms of the accusations, provable and provable accusations to warrant his being impeached, because it's not impeachment is a very, very serious matter.
And which brings me also to another issue of the provision of the Constitution. Do you think that it gives room for this kind of happenings? When the Constitution says a speaker can be impeached for gross misconduct, sometimes you find that the word or the phrase gross misconduct becomes whether misinterpreted or whether becomes very bogus, in terms of what does it actually means, for you to do you see this as a problem for us?
You and I know, to be realistic, you and I know that at the base of all this, it's not about improving the constitution or political conduct. It's about pecuniary needs. It's about maybe the speaker has sidelined some certain people from certain things, from certain distribution of certain items, or maybe, most likely, that's what happens when in these situations. And also, it also has to be part of the calculations of powers outside the assembly, perhaps maybe the executive, feeling that this speaker might not, is not playing ball. He's not playing ball with us. We need to get certain bills through. We need to get certain things done. And the speaker is trying to rub shoulders with us. And then, of course, they say, we show him. So, and then something happens, and then we're seeing impeachment left, right, and center. It's not when it happens. Usually, it's not usually about correcting certain constitutional infractions or legal infractions, but it's mostly about pecuniary things or power play between certain forces within the party, outside the party, and within the state. And it's playing out like that in Plateau State.
Now, maybe you should speak to us about, what does this show? Does it, some will say this shows desperation. Would you agree that this kind of fracas, mostly stems out of, the desperation, of political parties, and what should be the interest, what should be the focus, as against this,
I did say that we are getting into the 2023 groove now. In the next couple of years, perhaps maybe by next year, the political atmosphere will be charged up, because political actors want to start to, belong to certain factions and all that. And everybody's trying to make calculations about where to go and where not to go, and who to be with and who not to be with. It's happening. The whole thing is starting to get into a turmoil now. And, of course, it's not unconnected. When you see political happenings there, it's not unconnected with this development. And people, of course, try to get desperate because they want to be able to, look at strategic positions and then make sure that those people occupying those strategic positions are on their side. And if they're not on their side, they want to push them out so that they can bring in people who can be pliant. This is part of what's happening in politics. But what we are saying is, while it is normal, it is natural in politics to have this, but we should also be guided by the constitutional and legal procedures. Let it not be, at the whims and caprices, most times, of people who are doing it. Because at the end of the day, the people don't get served, and you heat up the tension, you heat up the polity unnecessarily, and then what you have is a spiral of political differences that dovetails into violence and instability, which we don't want. We want the democratic process prescribes the way actors can behave, or can be corrected, or can be adjusted, and those processes have to be followed. But if you decide to seek self-help, what you're looking for is instability, which we don't want in the polity.
So does activities like this in any way affect the people?
Well, most of the times when it happens, the people are not involved. They don't even know what's happening. They just see jostlings between political actors. And it's not really about the people, really, because if it's about the people, we'll see how it's done. But some people who sit down in their offices or in their, in their offices and decide to say, look, we don't want that guy. He's not moving with us, so we need to move in. Let's move somebody in there who can work with us. Or some people will say, look, that person, I think he's had enough. Let somebody else come in. All these kind of things. It's not about the people, really. It's not about the people, and I doubt if the people are involved, because if actually the whole thing is to serve the people, they'll go back to the people, and then tell them, look, this person whom you have elected to this assembly or to this position is not doing well, so we need to get him out, and we need your consent because you put him there. Can we do something about it? You started from the ward level right up to whatever, but now it's not like that. So it's actually a matter between the political actors, which of course the people are not involved in.
Lots of criticism has followed the sit-at-home order of the indigenous peoples of Biafra (IPOB) for Anambra residents in view of the forthcoming election. While some critics like Iwuji Chuks, a businessman, and Sondo Obioma, a carpenter, focused on the grievous implication of trying to truncate the Anambra State governorship election with its sit-at-home order, others frowned on the security implication. Some residents explained that if the election did not hold as scheduled, it would translate to a total breakdown of law and order and would therefore result in the declaration of a state of emergency.
In terms of security, there has not been any security in the country.
It affects everybody anyway. Though IPOB had already passed the information that they have stopped, any sit at home is not their own order. But people still believe that some people are still afraid. So if they come out, there will not be security, there will not be protection. That's why people decided to stay at home, not because of IPOB ordered.
On their part, Mr. Wangene Cyril and Chikeloba Okafor, a bus driver, are appealing to the leaders of IPOB and other pro-Biafran agitators to rescind the sit-at-home order to avoid a repeat of the Imo State saga.
Sit-at-home is all the Monday. Unfortunately, it has already affected our businesses or the working place. As I'm moving now, maybe I'm heading to a club. I just try my luck, whether if I will see motor or not. So, no, today is sit-at-home normally affect our work.
I think that what should be done is that government should put more effort in terms of security, you understand? They should give people hope that nothing is happening. Using the election as an example, you understand? You can't just tell people to come and vote when they don't have a clear something, as in a strong thing that will convince them that they will be secure when they come out. Polling booth is not far from home. It could be just at your doorstep. You will just come out. But the fear is that if I come out, I don't know what will happen. But once government improve in terms of security and give people hope that yes, nothing will happen to you, everybody will come out. Like in that election issue, I don't see anything that is there to stop it, you understand? Once the government put more effort in terms of security, I think we are good to go.
Governorship election is scheduled to hold in Anambra State on the November 6, 2021, but IPOB had declared November 5th to 10th as days for the sit at home in the southeast to put pressure on the federal government to release its leader, Nnamdi Kanu, from detention. Honora and Imobodo for Trust TV.
Well, there you have it. Anambra governorship election on the 6th of November. Quite a lot of preparation is ongoing, and a lot of focus seems to be on that, Anambra election. Just, how important is this election, as we, approach November 6th?
It's for good reason, because in many ways, the success of the Anambra elections would pave way for subsequent, for elections that are in the horizon, especially the 2023 elections. And it's also, restore or perhaps help give confidence to the people, not just of Anambra State, the Southeast and Nigerians, that the federal government is on top of the security situation. Because the action of the outlawed Indigenous Peoples of Biafra organization is actually daring the integrity of the federal government in organizing elections and in sustaining the democratic process. And so if the federal government takes it lightly, then it's goodbye democracy. Because then what you're going to have is Anambra State would lapse into anarchy, and it will spiral into the Southeast and possibly the entire country. So this is a make or mar situation for the government and for the people of Anambra and for the people of Southeast and the rest of Nigeria. So the federal government has to, by all means, ensure that that election takes place under atmosphere of security, for the people to go out and vote, and to make sure that the threat of violence by IPOB or any group for that matter does not materialize. So that's why it's very, very important. It must give confidence to Nigerians that the federal government is on top of the situation. Otherwise, it will now appear as if irregulars like IPOB have taken the government by the jugular and succeeded. So definitely it's something that the federal government has to approach with all seriousness, professional.
But before this election, we've seen this sit-at-home order issued by IPOB, and largely you would say that it's some sort of a success for them, because a number of people actually do not come out, to go about their usual business, especially on Mondays and all of that. So if we could do this kind of deployments, do we have to wait until when it's election before we could do this kind of deployments to ensure the safety of people? What's different?
The normal sit-at-home order is something that should be within the purview of the governors, the chief executives of those states to handle, because it's something that has to do with the internal situation in those states. But it appears that they had jettisoned that. It appears that they had capitulated to the irregulars, to the IPOB people. So, and then of course, a number of people also, because they are not too sure they have not seen steps taken by the government, the state government especially, in securing the environment, don't want to venture out, because if they did that, they will be at the mercy of the IPOB mob.
Well, but if you say that it's up to the governors to ensure that, there's safety in the states, the governors do not control the police, they do not control the military. What do they have really as governors, to ensure that people's safety is guaranteed?
Believe that you believe everything, okay? The governors cannot claim that they do not have. What measures have they taken? I mean, they can seek their assistance. They have a complement of security establishment within there. So they have the commissioners of police, they have the military formations, they have DSS, formations, they have civil defense. They could coordinate, and they have on top of it security votes to handle this things. They don't have to have control of the police. That's an asinine suggestion. They need to do more than what they're saying. They have not done that. They have capitulated because of political correctness. That is not what is needed. You have to be decisive. If you show, okay, let's take a look at what happens in Rivers State. Nyesom Wike stands up very clearly when such situations happen and says, look, we will not tolerate this. He doesn't have security police under him. He doesn't have army under him. But because he has shown resolve that he wants to meet these guys, he wants to ensure that there's security, there's people should go about their lawful duty. Nobody does that. The moment it rears its head, he goes after it. But these other governors, because of political correctness, because of certain interests they want to protect, they fold their arms and blame it on the federal government. But in this particular case, which is the elections, it's a national, of course it's a state election, but it also has national implications, which in this case is that if you do not organize that election successfully where people should go and vote free and fair, then you are saying goodbye to the democratic process. So it's a decisive situation. It's a threshold situation that the federal government has to handle. And it has gotten to the point where the federal government has to be directly involved, because the political actors and the various groups in Anambra State seem to have been, seem to be helpless in the hands of the governors and the hands of this group. So the federal government has to come in and ensure that people exercise their democratic rights, which is one of the requirements of the federal government for the people.
Okay, now we've seen the Ohaneses, trying to have more like a dialogue with IPOP, but it seems that's not really what they want. Right now, coppers, which are used as presiding officers, are already opting out, saying because of the threat by IPOP, it doesn't seem this is going to go well. What should we expect?
No, I think when situations like this, we know that IPOP does not represent the majority of the people of the Southeast. Yes, they have in their control certain groups of people, the young men unemployed, and the people who are ready to be used for all kinds of violent activities. Yes, but in terms of proper political presentation, proper representation of the Southeast and the Southeastern people and the intelligentsia, it is groups like the Ohanese and other groups that are genteel, that are reasonable, that can sit down to dialogue. But they have lost the plot. Along with the governors of the states, they seem to abdicate their responsibility, transferring their own responsibility either to the federal government or just sitting down and expecting the federal government to do everything. They will not even do the basics in terms of securing the areas, in terms of engaging the security establishment to ensure that these threats are stamped out. So having allowed things to get out of hand, they are now reaping the fruits, so to speak, of their lack of commitment, their lack of integrity in trying to, because they represent the masses or the people of the South in terms of actually speaking for them on the national stage, but they have abdicated their responsibility, and in that void has moved in the people irregulars like IPOP. So now it is now trying to, they now have to deal with the Frankenstein monster they have created out of their own lack of integrity and lack of commitment to actually securing the lives of the people in that place.
Do you think that this could be a problem itself, even for the deployments that will be made in that regard? The police is deploying, say, for instance, 34,000 operatives, like we've heard, in the reports. Could that be also a challenge for them in terms of maintaining peace and order in the state in this election?
Well, from the reports I have, it's a total security situation. Anambra State will be in a total security situation, security cordon, and that is to deter any acts of violence, of arson, that will be perpetrated by people who want to disrupt the process. So the federal government has taken it. President Buhari has briefed the service chiefs. He had a meeting with them and told them that election must hold. That is the idea. It must send a clear message to the miscreants that you cannot disrupt the democratic process. We cannot have anarchy and violence in Anambra State. And whatever grievances you have, you can channel it through the appropriate channels of government or whatever. But this is a democratic process. Whatever you want to win, you must win it through the democratic process, not through violence and anarchy, promoting acts of anarchy. And that is what IPOP stands for. And the federal government must be clear to them and to any other person that, look, democracy is what we chose. Democracy is the process in which we can resolve our differences, resolve our grievances, and we want to give people the right to choose. If the IPOP wanted, it could have gone into the political process and, with all the, so-called, popularity it has, to go through the political process and field candidates and go out there, field candidates for elections so that they can win either the governorship or House of Assembly or whatever. But they have not done that. They have chosen to be violent, to disrupt the process. So that means they are not democratic. They are outside the democratic process, and they have to be told that this is not on, and the federal government would safeguard the democratic process.
Now, there are some who have also raised concern, about how this will impact on the integrity of the election itself. Already there's fear in the atmosphere, and some are saying, look, this could lead to voter apathy. And aside from voter apathy, some are saying, well, look, it could just be a field day for the government in power, or, and all of that to have their way and all of that. What's your response?
But these are just mere speculations. And voter apathy happens everywhere, even in advanced democracies. It's the choice of people to vote. Well, we would want everybody to go out and vote, but it's their own choice. You can't force them to go and vote. They may not want to go out and vote for any other reason, for any number of reasons. So you cannot, you cannot, argue with that. But what is paramount and what is important is to ensure that anybody who wants to go out to vote must go and vote. And he must vote and choose the candidates he wants in a free and fair manner. That is democratic. Anything outside that is not democratic. It has to be dealt with. So whether there's voter apathy or whether people are afraid to come out to vote, the security agencies have been given their brief to ensure that anybody who tries to disrupt the process, who tries to even allow, look, even if 5 people come out to vote, it's a process. You cannot force anybody to come out to vote, but anybody who comes out to vote, that is, they have participated in the process, and the result of that process counts. And the fact that the allegations that it's going to, help a certain party or the other party is neither here nor there, because at the end of the day, the security authorities, the institutions have been given their mandates. Go and organize it in a free and fair manner. So we should not put the cart before the horse in this situation.
All right then. We'll be taking our next report now on this show. Now, farmers in rural communities in Giwa local government area of Kaduna State are gradually returning to their farms following continuous military onslaught on bandits harboring in surrounding forest areas. Now, villagers in Fatika district told Daily Trust that kidnapping for ransom has been on the decline since the commencement of the military operations, and confirmed that dozens of bandits have been killed through air and ground operations. Let's take a look at this update from Daily Trust Bureau Chief Lami Sadiq from Kaduna.
It's barely 2 months since the Kaduna State government joined other states in the northwest to impose certain security measures aimed at dislodging and curtailing the activities of gunmen locally referred to as bandits. These bandits usually harbor in forest areas that traverse across Kaduna, Niger, Zamfara, Katsina and Sokoto states. They move together in groups, attacking and killing as well as abducting residents and travelers. Just last month again, the Kaduna State government shut down telecommunication services. The aim was to give security agents the maximum cooperation as they move in to dislodge these bandits. Now, barely 1 month since the shutdown, we are hearing from communities or villages in Giwa local government area specifically that the military operation seems to be working. They're telling us that bandits are being killed in their dozens. They're also telling us that these bandits no longer move into their villages at will to kill and abduct. Most importantly, the villagers are saying that they now move to their farms without any fear of intimidation. Now, as trivial as going to the farm may sound to anybody, just a month ago, it was almost a death sentence for any villager to move to the farm around those areas. Now, the villagers are telling us that the telecommunications shutdown seems to be working. They are telling us that they are willing to endure it even for months, as long as it gives them back their lives, their lands, and their freedom.
Okay, now from that report, the military is saying they are winning the war against banditry because now farmers are gradually returning to their farms. But, with the number of cases we are still seeing in the news, are you of the opinion that the military is actually winning the war against banditry?
I think that's a premature assessment. In a war, you can have several battles. You can win a battle, but you may lose the war. Now, I think before the military starts beating its chest about winning the war, we should see a sustenance of this. We should see people are gradually, yes, there's confidence is being restored now because people, I mean, the bandits have been decimated to a very large extent. They have been degraded, and yes, and their capacity to cause more havoc has been really, really curtailed. But that's not yet Uhuru, because the conditions that brought out the bandits and made them bandits are still there. So if we have to, it's one thing to win in the battlefield. It's the next thing to win the hearts of the people. It's the next thing to also ensure that those things that made people to become bandits are not there, so that we don't go back to square one. Of course, we're happy whatever progress, I mean, that we have been able to make in terms of curtailing the banditry and kidnapping and all kinds of violent activities around that axis and elsewhere in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, we're happy, and we commend the military government and the federal government and the military authorities for the job well done. But we should not rest on our oars.
And you know, when you put that side by side with certain stories that we're hearing about, bandits imposing taxes in certain villages. In fact, there's one other story here about a notorious armed bandit who is known as Dogo Gide. He has imposed ban on sales and consumption of alcohol and other dangerous drugs in some communities in Ansado Emirate in Maru local government area of Zamfara State, according to Daily Trust report. Now, Dogo Gide, who has a base in Kuyambana Forest, straddling Zamfara, Kaduna, Niger, and Kebbi states, had last week slayed another notorious kidnapper called Damina in a rival fight in the forest. Now, so it's now looking like, the bandit is now a constituted authority of some sort, since they will take taxes, they will give orders, for certain things not to be done or to be done, and all of that. And they are now taking out, also other persons and all of that. Is that not audacious enough to understand that, look, this war is far from, being won?
Yeah, I did say earlier on that, yes, the military has won a battle, but there are several battles to be won. Several battles both in the field and outside the field on this war on banditry and terrorism and kidnapping and all kinds of violent activities. Now, for a situation where, a notorious bandit is coming out to make pronouncements and to even set what is called the law, it shows that there's more to be done, and that, it shows that the authority at that level of existence in Nigeria has been abdicated or has been abandoned, and leaving the field for irregulars and non-state actors to establish their own kind of agenda or government in that space. It should not be allowed. In fact, there should be a kind of how do I put it now, self-censorship by some of the media outlets in giving air to this kind of situation, because it now creates the effect of somebody, controlling something which he doesn't, which he shouldn't. Because it's part of the war we have to win, not just the war in the battlefield, but war of the minds. Now, if you put out a story and say, look, somebody is, asking people to pay taxes and all that, you are actually giving the person the air, the oxygen that he doesn't deserve, because at the best of times, he's a criminal, he's a bandit, he's an outlaw, and he must not be encouraged in any way, because he's bringing a lot of hardship and disruption of lives and livelihood of people. So that war is not for the military alone, it's also for us in the public, in the civil society, so that we don't give air, we don't give oxygen to such individuals, because at the end of the day, they are not working for the law, they are not working to restore peace, they are working to disrupt the lives of people. And for this individual, Dogo Gide, to be making to be putting out such laws, it's illegal. He himself, his activities are illegal, so whatever he does, he himself is an outlaw, so whatever he does is illegal. So he must not be given the oxygen to be saying all these things, because you are in a way trying to get people to comply with him.
Okay.
Because
So how do you think the media should report, stories like this?
Yeah, the responsibility of ensuring that we defeat these people is not just on the military. It's also on us practitioners of this business. Because if we deny them, we have already, everybody knows that these people are outlaws. They are bandits, they are people who create trauma, they are terrorists, they are all kinds of, they are existing outside the prescribed laws of the people of the country. So they should not be given any room at all. And it's not just about the military taking the fight to them. We also should deny them those those things that they need to, that they crave. And in this case, we're talking about somebody trying to, if we have information on what these guys are doing, take it to the appropriate authorities and tell them, look, hey, this is what we heard from this person, from this group. Do something about it. We don't want to air it because we believe that it's giving these people the kind of oxygen of publicity that they don't deserve, because they are outlaws. They cannot be tolerated. They cannot be allowed to establish their own, their own system of laws in this country, because it doesn't conform with what we know, what we have all, what we comply with in our daily lives. So they must not be given that kind of publicity.
Now, how can Nigeria come off this? Because, each time we have this discussion, the focus is always about, solution. What can Nigeria do? The whole conversation about deployment, of the fact that we do not have enough, boots on the ground, to man all those places, ungoverned spaces that we have. And some have suggested that, look, why not deploy technology? It will close all the gaps, that we are having at the moment. But it doesn't look like we are, actually taking advantage of that.
Any intelligence operative will tell you, any realistic intelligence operative will tell you that technical intelligence is not enough to defeat insurgency. It's not enough to defeat a war situation, but you need what is called human intelligence, HUMINT. And HUMINT is the aggregation of a lot of things, daily lives and all that sort of thing. Now, the prosecution of the war against banditry and all that has been heavy on the military side. But there are very, very important aspects of this warfare that has not been deployed, which is the human angle, the HUMINT, because we are dealing with human beings. Some of these people have taken advantage of the situation to launch asymmetrical hybrid wars, because they know that where they are short on technical or machinery or on guns or ordnance, they move into, they use the human area, sure. And that's where they're more deadly and effective. So,
But even at that, what's about our own deployment of, say, detectives, for instance, people who can, assimilate themselves as well into the society and get information that could be relevant to the prosecution of this war. That is
what I was saying, because that's why I said the human angle, the HUMINT, because where technical equipment can only give you a certain kind of advantage, but the main cutting-edge advantage is by going in there, deploy undercover operations, deploy intelligence operatives to go in there, ferret out their command and control, to know what their supply sources are, to know what their their intelligence and how they're set up, and then you can now target them and then know what to do. But then we're just looking at one aspect, one dimensional approach to the whole thing, because the whole thing has its several dimensions. There's the human angle, as I said. There's the social angle. There are all kinds of things to be done, and which, of course, we have to, for us to win the war, we have to deploy all these tactics, all these tools, and then. But we are thinking that it's just about military. Well, yes, like what's happening now in the Zamfara area. Some of these guys could just move on to areas where you have less concentration of military firepower, and then move on, continue with their activities, because they have proven to be able to move in between the battlefronts. So we need to be able to also deploy those tactics to be able to be locked in step with them, to ensure that whatever they are planning, outside of the technical abilities of the government or of the forces. They are, they are targeted, they are known, and they are disrupted. So that's the only way to degrade them effectively and to make sure that they don't become as fierce a threat that they have been. So and then as I said again, for somebody to issue those kind of statements, a bandit, an outlaw to issue those kind of statements, and to get that kind of attention from media, I think this is one aspect of the war we have not, the military and the authorities have not cotton on. So they need to be able to look at and get everybody along, so that the fight will not just be about military tactics, but it's also about human angle, about day-to-day angles of people, because they live among us, they get supplies from amongst us, they get information from amongst us, they deploy. They recruit their people from amongst us. So that aspect has to be taken into account, to degrade them, to cut off their supplies, cut off their activities, and ensure that they don't become they don't become a threat to us again.
So is it that the government has not explored this method? That's why we are seeing so much of this happening.
If they have, why would we be talking about it now? Because now I'm talking about angles that they have obviously not, or if they have done it, they have not really gone as far as they would have done. I mean, there is this idea that, firepower is the only way to hit them. Yeah, it's true. Firepower is good, firepower is effective, firepower is, really, really hit them where it hurts. But going forward, you need to be able to deploy these things, because you need to be able to make sure that their supply, their oxygen in terms of getting supplies, in terms of getting recruitment, in terms of getting food and all kinds of things are cut off. And that is where you need to, widen the scope. Ensure that it's not just military. You can defeat them in the battlefield, but they're still with you in the fields, in the villages, in the communities. And when they get into those areas, that's where they create more havoc, because this becomes a soft target for them.
Okay. Now let's take a look at another story we're getting to here. The Kaduna State government has demolished shops at Kawo Motor Park as part of its urban renewal project. However, shop owners and commercial vehicle operators express anger over the demolition exercise, saying government has no sympathy for the common man. The state government insists that 3 days notice is given to traders to vacate the motor park. Trust TV's Fatima Salaladen sent in this report. Take a look.
This Kawo Motor Park, a popular park in Kaduna for decades, which serves as a garage for repairs of vehicles, and also there are shops in and outside the park, which serves as a marketplace for many and a source of living for many people. But today, what we are seeing is the demolition of shops as a result of the relocation of the park to another destination. According to the Kaduna State government, this is part of the urban renewal going on in the state, which says the park can no longer be located here. Some traders and shop owners doing businesses in the motor park narrate their depressing stories.
We are not happy at all. It is destructive. We are not happy at all. We are only given 3 days notice. So after 3 days, in fact, we have to pack our loads because anything can happen. We have seen what's happening in other places. There's no compensation at all.
Gaskiya ba mu ji daɗi ba, kasantuwan mu wannan notice ma ba mu san da shi ba. Kwana uku aka ba da notice, kuma mun yi mu je a ba mu a ƙara mana ma ba a ƙara mana ba. Asali muka dawo kuma muka rasa yadda za mu. Kwana uku yayi, kowa ya zo ya fara cire kayayyakin shi. So hankalinmu ya tashi. At least dai yanzu muna ƙasa ba abin da muke yi. Akalla akwai shaguna wajen 500 a cikin garejin nan.
Babu wanda zai je wannan daɗin wannan rusau ɗin. Ko da bai da shago nan wurin, in dai yana da alƙalla a nan wurin yana kasuwanci, ba zai ji daɗi ba.
Markets, shops and houses have been demolished in different parts of the state capital for rebuilding of a road expansion, with many victims claiming they have not been paid compensation or provided other alternative. Fatima Salaladen, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
Well, there you have it. I mean, demolition and whatever follows, all the time is always the same. People, expressing dissatisfaction and, their annoyance, as a result of that. But, I mean, what's the rationale behind this? Is this really necessary?
Well, I'm not always a fan of Governor El-Rufai, Nasser El-Rufai of Kaduna State. I believe sometimes it's arbitrary and sometimes it's irascible. Sometimes he's a tin-pot autocrat, high challenge tin-pot autocrat. But I think on this, I support him 100% because you can't have people not, obeying the laws. We want the best from our government. We want the government to provide this and that. And the government cannot do that without the cooperation of people. Even if you've seen the project, the Kakao flyover project, it's a very busy intersection. And you need to be able to have space. You need to be able to move people. And urban renewal is a continuous exercise. You can't have that motor park there. It was there at some point, but now, as the urbanization of Kaduna is going apace, you need to be able to move certain things out of planning way. So you need to have proper planning. You need to have, to be able to move places that have become so obsolete, that have become so, that no longer fit for purpose out of the place. And I believe that, in taking that step, Governor El-Rufai is doing the right thing because he's trying to give the area a new shape, a new look. I mean, we sometimes, try to blame our governments. Yes, sometimes the governments are arbitrary in the way they do things, but in this case, the necessity is there.
But, isn't this going to disrupt the economic activity that takes on, that happens in that place? It's quite a beehive, that location, each time you go there, and a lot of commercial activities and all of that. Isn't that going to disrupt the whole
But
thing?
It's also an eyesore. You and I know that place is an eyesore. A lot of people are disorganized. It's not like it's a proper market. It's a proper park. He wants to move that park to another place. The urbanization has caught up with that area. When it was first set up, it was almost like in the outskirts of the town. Now, urbanization, population explosion, and all that has caught up with that area. You need to move it out so that you have. When you've been trapped in the Kawo traffic gridlock for hours, you know what I'm talking about. So you need to move, and the motor park is a major source of the traffic gridlock there. So you need to move it out in order to allow. You can't have that kind of flyover that's been constructed, and then you have that kind of motor park which is operated without regards to traffic laws, without regards to urban laws, without regards to even social security, because it's not close to a barrack.
Now, we've seen some of the expression of dismay from some of the residents or people who actually market some of their goods in that area. It seems they're looking for some form of compensation from that government. Do you think that's really something to explore?
Well, it's something to explore. If they are properly, if they have proper, documentation to own shops there, they can be entitled to compensation because they have lost their livelihoods. They have taken, they have the documentation to be there. But if they don't, then they don't have any claim. They don't have any claim for compensation, because a lot of people who actually make these claims actually are not supposed to be there if we check properly. So let's not be emotional about this. Let's really be critical. Let's look at it from the point of view of what the law says. And a lot of people will come up and say, oh, this and that, but let us really understand whether they have a right to be there in a proper procedural way.
Now, most times when these things happen, you hear, oh, we've not been given enough notice, to vacate the place, and, abruptly we saw, bulldozers just come and just, destroy the whole place and all of that. Do you think that that's a missing link somewhere, in terms of communicating intentions here?
Well, I think the government has given them 3 days to move. 3 days to move for people in that park. It's a park. It's not a market, by the way. It's a park. It's a place where you go there to get into a vehicle to take you to other parts of other areas, other cities or other towns, either to Jos or to Kano or to other places. So if you are told to move, you move. Those people that have shops around that area, I'm quite sure were not documented. They took advantage of the park, just like we do in Nigeria, and then set up shops around there so that they can sell things, and then as time moves on, it becomes something of a feature of that park. But a park really is where people go and enter a bus or a taxi or to go to other destinations. So you are not expected to turn it into a market. But the Kawo Park is more or less like a market. It competes as a market as well as a park. So you can't have that around that area.
Thank you so much, honorable guest ILLIYASU GADU, for coming on the show this morning. We hope to have you next time.
Thank you very much for having me.
And giving us perspectives on some of these recent happenings. Today we decided to touch on all the various issues, recent developments in and around the country. Well, for now, we would say bye for now. In case you missed, you can catch up on our YouTube channel and also on our social media handles. And you can also stay tuned on the channel. 360 Sports comes at 9:30. So just stay tuned to the channel and you get to watch all the updates on sports. With that, we've come to the end. Thank you for watching. My name is ILLIYASU. Join us again.
And I'm Zainab Bala. Thank you so much for watching.